mihoyo recently released a 30-minute alpha footage showcase for their brand new game Varsapura, or however you pronounce it, I have no idea. It simultaneously looks amazing and bizarre. The first thing that stood out to me were the visuals. The game seems to be a mixture of a fairly realistic world with semi-realistic anime characters. During the driving section, it genuinely looks like you're driving through downtown Japan. Maybe. I don't know. I've never been there. I'm just assuming. The sun is out, the sky is clear, it's warm with a nice breeze, a beautiful Wednesday afternoon. And then the characters jump out of the car and all of a sudden I'm looking at one of those weird Japanese, very friendly robots. The characters themselves remind me a lot of Pixar characters, more specifically The Incredibles 2. Mr. Incredible, Elastigirl, Frozone, etc. are all very clearly cartoon characters, but they do have a certain level of detail that makes them feel real. I think Varsapura is going for something similar. Another example would be Infinity Nikki, which once again is clearly supposed to be anime characters, but it has a certain level of realism to their bodies and world itself that makes them feel a little more real than your traditional anime game. Currently, the mixture of a realistic world with semi-realistic anime characters is odd. The world itself looks really good, but the characters feel very plasticky. These two elements are in conflict with each other. I don't think it looks awful by any means. For the most part, I think it looks fine, but there is a noticeable disconnect. Keep in mind, this game is certainly very early in development. Most likely it's still in early alpha, so there is more than enough time to improve and refine the characters and world itself. Sadly, I am not an artist myself, so I'm not sure what exactly is causing this strangeness. The only direct criticism I can provide is that the characters feel far too smooth, once again as if they were plastic dolls. Adding some more details to the face specifically could help make the world and characters themselves blend together into a delicious banana smoothie. Overall, I like the idea of the art style, but do agree that it's very rough currently. I'm hopeful and excited to see the art style improve with time.
Do you see that?
Maybe the brigade? My girlfriend thinks they're hot.
Hello? Hello?
You don't know who you are. I see your true self. You're no hero. I'd say average at best. An officer has come to collect you.
Personally, I love the psychological thriller horror aspects of the game, even when nothing is directly happening and the main character is just walking through the police station. There's this odd stillness to the world, the continuous underlining suspense. Something isn't quite right. This shadow looming directly behind you, a whisper down the corridor. Maybe I'm just imagining it, maybe it's just my disdain for pigs, but that's how I felt watching the video. And then we have the in-your-face crazy mindfuckery, and it is incredibly well done. Talking to a fellow interviewee when suddenly the lights flicker, but he doesn't notice. Just keeps blabbering about his girlfriend, lucky bastard. You speak, but he doesn't seem to notice, making you wonder if any of this is real or just in your head. Suddenly, you pass out. You awaken in the same room, drowned in shadow. You go through the door and enter an endless sea of black. A light flickers, your only warmth, and a bench, your only solace. The cat speaks. The Shadow Man appears. This entire sequence is great! I am definitely playing it up, making it more than it actually is, but regardless, I really liked it. Walking with Sayuki, the officer, was also well done. The world being blurry and not being able to understand what the others are saying or even understand what they look like, except for Sayuki, relying entirely on her to guide you while your mind is jumbled, immediately ingratiates her to you. A guiding light in the darkness, as it were. Then we have this spectacle. The building stretches into the infinite and these little platforms materialize, the room being filled with this black ooze and the player having to climb as fast as possible as to not be drowned. visually looks great and has the potential to be fun from a player standpoint. Then we have this crazy epic cinematic at the end of the mine sequence. The world starts to break apart, the black ooze returns, and just as you near the door, it stretches far out of your reach. It's a great cinematic with tension. If this was playable similar to the climbing sequence, that would definitely be fun. Hopefully we see things like that in future trailers, betas, and of course, full release. The story itself seems really interesting. Being a paranormal cop investigating a variety of spooky phenomena has potential to be a really fun, trippy, gripping narrative. The world building itself was also really interesting. For example, there was this one room that had a bunch of old school movie projectors outlined in a circle, and when you turn them all on, their light shines into the center of the room and opens some mystical door that leads somewhere. It's like a mind palace kind of thing, but I don't know if it's like an alternate dimension or like a pocket universe or what exactly is going on here. It's really interesting though, and I'm interested in learning more. The gameplay seems to be traditional mihoyo action combat. You have access to 3 characters at max, each with their own unique weapon, attack animation, skill, and ultimate. The main character uses an umbrella, which is a really fun and unique weapon. Movement seems to be a big aspect of her gameplay because she's constantly bouncing all over the place. She has a basic short ground combo where she alternates between beating enemies with a handle and stabbing them like a rapier. Interestingly, she can also shoot some sort of purple water bullet. She has this attack where she opens the umbrella and spins around, and she can also launch herself into the air. These attacks don't seem to be a part of her basic ground combo. It's possible characters have separate basic and strong combos. For example, she could have a unique square combo and then a unique triangle combo. The water bullet could be a strong attack, the spin attack could be a charge attack, and the airflow could be a skill that lets her access her air attacks. Sometimes enemies enter some sort of stunned state and she can perform an assassinate attack, some sort of powerful grab attack seemingly. Presumably the E button is a skill button, but at no point in the 30 minutes does it activate, or at the very least it never enters a cooldown like her ultimate does. So it's unclear which of her attacks is her skill, if she even uses it at all. The reason I point this out is because currently it's unclear how deep / complex / simple the combat is. Umbrella Girl does a surprising amount of different actions, but it's impossible to make out how many different things she's actually doing. Like I said, does she have separate basic and strong attacks? Does she have multiple skills? Is she using direction inputs to access different animations? It's unclear. Also, her ultimate is pretty interesting. She mimics shooting herself in the head, causing it to rain around her. This damages enemies and causes disorder. Disorder seems to be some sort of elemental damage. Whether or not disorder is a universal element that multiple characters can access or something exclusive to her is once again unclear. I really like the Binder Girl. Her weapon being the manipulation of papers and summoning giant stacks of binders is inspired. It's simultaneously funny and cool. Interestingly, she doesn't seem to have the same variety that the Umbrella Girl has. She has a basic ground attack combo, presumably her skill where she summons giant stacks of binders, and her ultimate where she creates a mini paper black hole. Since this game is still early in development, it's possible her other attacks and mechanics just aren't finished yet. For example, she doesn't do an assassinate attack. Maybe she won't have access to that, or maybe they haven't implemented it in this build of the game. She does have a unique mechanic of her own, however. If she hits enemies into her giant binders, it will cause the enemy to receive impact damage. We don't see other characters smack enemies into the binders, so similar to Disorder, it's unclear if impact is exclusive to her or not. There is also a switch attack. When switching to a different character, the entering character will do a unique attack. Umbrella Girl does an umbrella uppercut and then shoots a water bullet. Binder Girl does a paper smash attack, and finally we have the Pink Girl with the giant chained spike ball. Similar to Binder Girl, we don't see her do a lot, but I do like what little we see. She has what I'm assuming is her skill. She floats in the air and her spike ball flashes twice. She smashes the ground and creates a gravity well. The flashes presumably determine the strength of the attack, 1 flash for the weak version, 2 flashes for the strong version, or possibly she can do 2 different attacks and the amount of flashes determines which one she does. 2 for the gravity smash, 1 for something else. Her switch attack is her flying in like a goddamn meteor and creating a small crater. She of course has a basic ground combo, which I do like. There's a nice weight to her animations. What I'm assuming is her charge attack, where she spins around like Mario Tile St. Bowser. And finally, her ultimate. She floats in the air for a second, then comes crashing down into the ground, causing a giant earthquake and, once again, a gravity well. All in all, she seems pretty cool. I like her. But notice that she also doesn't have the assassinate attack or variety in her attacks that Umbrella Girl has. I'm assuming and hoping that this is because the game is still early in development and they just haven't implemented that stuff yet. And not because Umbrella Girl will simply have access to more things than everybody else. Because that would genuinely suck. Speaking of assassinate attacks, the game has a stealth mechanic. Oh dear lord! It seems very rudimentary. By pressing the G button, you can enter a crouch position, presumably making your movements quieter and making you harder to be found. Sneak up behind enemies to perform an assassinate attack, killing them instantly. There's a cool moment here where the player jumps onto a platform, sending it crashing down on top of some enemies and dealing massive area of effect damage. If the game allows for more environmental interactivity, then the stealth system certainly can be fun. Overloading a circuit breaker box to cause an explosion, activating a wrecking ball to smash enemies, pushing a piano over a rooftop, and best of all, taking advantage of the crazy psychological aspect to do really wacky environmental interactions. The stealth footage reminds me a lot of the Arkham series and the Insomniac Spider-Man games. I don't necessarily think those games have great stealth, but it's definitely a good starting point. Currently, from what is being presented, it doesn't stand out as inherently good or bad. The system exists and hopefully will be expanded upon throughout development. A really interesting mechanic happens during dialogue. The player has options that actually matter. Seemingly. Maybe. Possibly. We'll see. Players will sometimes have normal response options, asking a question, expanding upon the topic, or otherwise neutral statements, but sometimes color options appear. Empathy, persuasion, deception. These are special options that potentially could dramatically change the conversation. Use deception to lie about your true intentions, use wisdom to gain the information you desperately need, or use empathy to be an honest, just person. What's really fascinating, however, is that there's a failure chance. Every time you use a colored text box, you have potential for failure. Sadly, we don't see what happens if you fail the check, but it sounds really interesting. I'm curious to see what happens if you fail dialogue. Like, does the person call you out on your bullshit and you receive some kind of penalty to something? I don't know what kind of penalty you would receive, but there's a lot of potential here. This system has me simultaneously interested and worried. A lot of games have fake depth in their dialogue. You are presented with many options, but regardless of which one you pick, you will always say the same thing or something very similar. Conversations will always play out the same way. What you say essentially doesn't matter. It's the illusion of choice. This system could be nothing more than a simple way to slightly personalize your version of the main character, or it could be a way to expand on the story, which would be way more interesting. Not only accessing unique dialogue, but maybe even entirely different cutscenes and quests. That would be cool. We saw what happens when picking persuasion and deception in order to ask for information on your killer. But what happens if you don't ask? How much or how little will that change the story? Will the Shadowman tell you anyways? Or will you have to find that information in a completely different part of the game? There's a lot of potential here, and hopefully they realize that potential in the full release. Lastly, we have the open world. There isn't anything to say really. It looks nice, a well-made city landscape, but beyond that, I got nothing. The player drove a car for a decent amount of time, so the world seems to be fairly large if this is any indication, and the driving mechanics themselves looked okay. It's impossible to say how good it is without playing it myself. But what kind of open world activities we will be doing, I haven't the foggiest idea. We'll just have to wait and see for more information on that front. Now then, the big question. Is this game a gacha game? Genuinely, I don't know. Some aspects scream gacha game, while others scream standalone release. Although the Umbrella Girl seemed to have a decent amount of variety in her combat, the other two girls seem to be a lot more restricted. The 3-character team with a focus on constantly switching between them is very common for gachas. Characters seem to only have one skill and one ultimate. Once again, very simple and very common for a gacha game. Are all of these restrictions here because the game is a gacha, so characters are inherently far more simple? Or are there various mechanics and abilities not fully implemented yet since the game is still early in development? The story was well made and seemed interesting. Some gachas have a big focus on the story while others don't, so that doesn't make me think one way or the other. However, what I am tentatively calling the morality system does point towards a standalone release that could potentially change the story in small and major ways depending on what you choose. Realistically, a true morality system that changes the story cannot work in a gacha. Since they regularly receive story updates, it would be impossible to account for every small and major variation. But a standalone release can more easily keep track of every variation. There's also the open world. While driving around, I couldn't see any sort of potential gacha open world activities. Enemies protecting treasure chests, material dungeon entrances, shops, quest givers, literally anything. The world looked nice but seemed fairly empty, similar to something like Mafia, Watch Dogs, Insomniac Spider-Man, your average open world game. But once again, keep in mind, this is still early in development, so a lot of those features just probably haven't been implemented yet. All of that being said, currently I'm leaning towards a gacha game simply because this is a mihoyo game. However, it's not unheard of for a gacha company to make a standalone release. A recent good example of that would be the company Shift Up, which made Stellar Blade, a PlayStation exclusive standalone title. The idea of a psychological thriller horror where a cop investigates their own murder and the story changing based on your morality choices sounds dope as hell. But at the same time, I don't necessarily think Varsapura being a gacha is a bad thing. The world seems interesting and seeing it evolve over time could be cool. I am definitely interested in this game and plan on covering future trailers and betas if I'm lucky enough to get accepted, and if the game even has betas to begin with. If it's a standalone title, it probably won't have any betas, but I mean, it could have a demo, we'll see. So if you want to see future coverage, subscribe to my channel. Also, make sure to leave a like and become a channel member by clicking the join button if you want to more directly support me. What are your thoughts on Varsapura? Feel free to let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching and I will see you next time. Bye bye.